as planned, and I'm not going to delay the start. I'm going to hand over to Shirley straight away to introduce her session. But just to say how important this is, given the context of employability going forward and the challenges that people are going to face with employability. So it's an ideal opportunity for us to kind of consider this in terms of COVID and post-COVID. But anyway, I'll let Shirley explain that.
Okay, well, thank you. Welcome everybody to this session. I'm just going to try to share my screen. Hopefully you can see what I can see, which is just to remember to sort of really welcome you to this embedding employability sort of online session. And really, this is the fruit of some work that colleagues have done over the summer, right through when we broke with COVID. David encouraged us to form these working groups to try to look at the big question: how can we pivot our employability offerings this semester and for the year ahead sort of quickly online? So the focus is what we're already doing in terms of good practice, but particularly what I'm wanting to focus on is what we've been learning about the good practice that colleagues have been embedding in their practice over the past few weeks and are doing now. So I don't know about you, but as you listen to the news and as you think about the context, it seems from an employability point of view, for those who had just left, this is probably one of the most difficult times for job hunting internationally since really the crash of 2008. So we feel that actually the context is a really challenging one. It's probably challenging too for the students coming in terms of the different sort of summer, the different or lack of internships and placements for many of our students. And so together we're facing a really huge challenge. And yet there is still so much we can do. So I think the tone that I wanted to look at was a sort of a balance of thinking about the difficulties, but also thinking about the opportunities. And that's why the overview that you can see here is just saying, I'd like to first of all find out a bit about what you'd like to look at today, what your expectations are. So for those of you that can see the chat or pull up the chat, we're going to invite you to just throw in there your personal expectation, you know, what you'd like to take away from the day. There's sufficient of us to not be able to do that all at once. And then we're going to just briefly look, perhaps with a big picture of strategically where employability fits in what we're doing, and then talk a little bit about this contested idea of employability before discussing some of the practice responses that we have to share that we've been learning about. And that's why for me this whole area of hope, it is difficult out there, but because we believe that employability is a really significant part of teaching and learning, this is something that's really worth working for. And I think this idea of the evidence out there is that these are difficult times, but we can equip our students to move forward with some really helpful stepping stones. So challenging times, but hope that we might be able to really make a difference. And I suppose I was thinking today of the people in my career over the past years who really have made a difference because of something small, something quite unheroic or hidden, a conversation that they've had. And I just want to, I really do believe that we can each individually as well as together make a difference to the students that we're working with. So what about you? And so just this is my in a nutshell moment. So I'm just inviting you to find the chat box. And in a few minutes, Sophie and I are going to look, I'm not going to talk for too long. I don't want to do that. I want to just set the scene a little bit. And when we invite you in 5-6 minutes time to go to some discussion groups, we're going to look at what you said to the in a nutshell. What do you most hope to gain from today's session on employability? And you can type that in whenever you like over the next 5 minutes, if there's something that I say that hopefully strikes a note or a thought. So what I want to do is really talk about this whole area of embedding employability. And all that I have here, this is from Higher Education Academy, now Advanced HE. You'll probably recognise this is the model that's become quite central to their thinking about the whole idea of embedding employability throughout the whole curriculum. And what I really like, and I'm just going to touch on it briefly, are these three things. Let's be clear what we mean by employability. I don't know about you, but I often come across colleagues who say that's nothing really to do with me. I'm an academic. And as if employability is something else, or a narrow view that it's actually just about job hunting. So let's actually look at what we mean by employability for SEED. And then this idea of auditing and mapping, that idea of what are we doing? Where are we now? And three would be, in a COVID world, what action do we need to take in the next semester or the next season to make a difference in the current climate? And then we'll later on in the year be able to measure the impact in a number of ways, in the usual ways, by the sort of benefit that we've brought to our students. So that's the big framework that I want us to walk through today. So I don't know what you think. What do you think? What is employability? In a face-to-face world, we'd now have post-it notes or some sort of discussion. But I just wanted to offer you these two different ideas. The first is this relatively well-established definition of employability that's been embraced, and it sort of quite reflects government thinking about the outcome view, about successful in their chosen occupations, and that they'll be able to get a job effectively with some other benefits. As a committee, we worked together and we came up with a slightly different, and we thought, SEED version of this, which really has a sense of journey, a sense of well-being, and it's less performative in that it's actually about them achieving their personal and professional goals. And in our DNA, this idea of making a contribution to society, that social responsibility focus. If you wanted to have a look at our guide, we've pointed you to some literature there that talks about these multiple stakeholders, complex debates around employability. And I think it's really helpful for us individually and us in programs and departments to address that question for ourselves about what we think employability is for us. And I've picked up two big themes from the webinars over the past few weeks. One came from MIE, this idea of digital habitat. That's what we are now creating and living in. It made me realise that actually the environment that we're teaching in now is probably more like the workplace in terms of a realistic preview of real work than it ever has been before. So we're in this sort of positive, challenging environment that's going to go on. It's going to become a legacy. So our students are already learning in a digital habitat that will occupy now into the future. And because what we're doing is now embedded, what we're doing is drawing out that's already embedded within our programs, but drawing attention to it. I know there's a lot of detail here, but all I wanted to say was really this idea that careers and careers guidance is really important. Manchester's award-winning for years nationally with our home graduates. But look at all the rest of what really is involved in employability. It includes our theories and our knowledge. It includes our technical skills, but it includes reflection, building confidence, getting people to reflect on their personal values, and shaping that sense of their identities. And these are really formative and important things that we're doing when we're teaching. So that's enough for me. Really, I just wanted to say what we've identified to draw out. In fact, embedding is something we do at the start. What we're really doing now is excavating it, drawing it out, its potential, and equipping particularly, obviously, our graduates and postgraduates with all of that potential agency. So we've just as a group asked 5 questions, but you can see that the Programme Advisory Group looking ahead course development is there, but we're not going to focus on it in detail. I hope that ideas that we share and suggest lead us to want to make changes. Already this year we've seen quite a few changes because of COVID, but we might want to make some lasting changes. So 4 areas and 4 things to think about before I invite you to go and to discuss this where you are. How do you already communicate the way your programme or course supports this? We know that your programme supports this, but how clear is that to you and to others? Is it sufficiently surfaced? How do you embed world of work insights from employers and alumni? What are you doing? How are you doing that? And especially online. What about the rich resources that students bring? I've been amazed over the past few years from our SEED employability survey at what variety of experiences our students bring from past work. And even though the summer's been very difficult, many of them will have still negotiated alternative opportunities over the past season. And then 4th, Sophie's here, our new SEED careers consultant. Later in the webinar, she's going to share with us what the careers service is doing with its central online offering. So those are some areas you might think of something else. Those are the 4 that we noticed being really prominent in SEED when we've consulted with colleagues. So what I'd like to do now is suggest that having thrown out those thoughts, this is something to just ask you to reflect on. So this is the question, really. What do you see as the main employability challenge, if you like, need that you are addressing or have already begun to address? What are you doing to tackle that? We promised that we'd have some debate and discussion. So I'm just going to stop sharing there. So that's the question that I'd like us to go and discuss. What I'm going to invite you to do is to meet each other. I think I'm just trying to see how many of us are there. There are 16. So I think if I invite you to go and work with 2 or 3 others, please enjoy a conversation, okay? What do you see as the main aspect of employability in the season ahead? Well, welcome back, everybody. What you hopefully have shared and heard about is what top priorities people have been working on. We'll have more chance to come back and return to that in about 5 or 10 more minutes. It's really interesting to hear the range of different issues from people who've been working with the challenge of placements, or the challenge of trying to quickly sweep in with specific employability units, or just all the normal challenges of students who feel quite anxious about what the future is going to hold and what we can do to respond to build their skills and their confidence. So what I'd like to do is just go back to sharing with you some of the good practice that we've been hearing about. Some of it's been shared by the employability leads. You'll recognise perhaps some of the initiatives and might have heard about them. Some of them are very tiny things, but 1 degree shifts gradually really make a difference. Some of them are really quite big things, big initiatives that are sort of courageous and innovative. So we've chosen just to share a spectrum of different areas. So I'm going to go back and try to share my screen a second time with you and just run through that. So that was the question we've addressed. As I mentioned earlier, we're just going to suggest 5 areas. 1 would be to embed these in the future in our programs. But for now, just really 4 things, and I'm really not going to spend too long. So although these slides might look a little bit busy, really what they're meant to be doing is just suggesting what others have already been done. Some of these will be very familiar. One of the things that we worked with the recruitment and admissions team and program directors and all sorts of colleagues was really upgrading and sharing alumni career stories, so that our web pages give a really clear account of what happened next when people left. And so I'm really thankful to all the folk that called their graduates that they were in touch with, and we now have populated all over Seed in almost every program a series of different accounts. And those are really not just important for admissions, but for our existing students to connect with and see. And right the way through the whole of that life cycle, really starting now this week with undergraduate induction, the conversations we have that say, choose your elective in line with where you feel that your career might be going. And the other things that I found we can do this year under COVID that's been a challenge to me and maybe to you is thinking about converting not just the unit learning outcomes, but weekly sessions. How am I foregrounding the employability facets of that? Am I emphasizing the importance of critical thinking or team working or communication skills, personal reflection? We have a really great story to tell. And this might not actually be just really changing too much our practice. It might be reframing it and foregrounding it, putting it more in our shop window of why these things really matter. One of the things that I'm also really thrilled about, you might have heard about this, so forgive me if you already have, so how do you already communicate? As I've been whistling through, you tick list. So one of the things that we're doing in this stage 2 is auditing. What do I already do? So you maybe already do all of those things, which is fantastic. Was there something else that you might foreground a little more? This was one for me that I'm going to foreground. I'm so excited that the postgraduate groupings now in Seed that have not been able to do the grand challenges before can do them this year. So if you didn't know that, I hope it's good news to you that they can now do workplace ethics challenge and the social justice challenge, as well as our colleagues in volunteering have pivoted amazingly and are converting a huge number of volunteering opportunities for students to do them remotely and online. But for us in Seed, I think this idea of opening up the social justice challenge to more students, and I don't know if you've had it, I've put there the staff links and the student links, but if you have a look, the materials are superb, really, really great. The second area that you probably have already talked about and what you already do and are thinking about how to do online is this whole area of world of work insights. And I know that the Alumni Office are going to be doing Meet the Professionals, but there is a range of ways that we can. One big one that I thought was really important is connecting with other graduates who have already survived a recession, a huge shock to the labour market was the 2008, and there's a lot of research which I've embedded in the slides at the end about what happened next to the class of 2008-2010, who this is a different experience from one we've ever had before, but really what we can learn about their resilience. There was a dip in employment. A lot of people went and studied a postgraduate, but if you see the recovery in the data, there's a lot of encouragement about the long-term difference that getting a qualification from a university brings. So not just to go online with our speakers, but really to think about what concerns the students might have and how those who are already in the world of work can engage with that. I also want to point to a lovely colleague, Miri Firth's work. Not just has she introduced a new unit into year 2 about applied study period, but listening to what she's having to do to try to pivot that online is probably something that resonates with all of you that are working in a professional sphere about how to make that work. So including world of work insights, And the third thing that I have found really super during my time here as Associate Director is discovering how much rich experience all of our graduates bring through internships, volunteering, and sometimes significant periods of past work experience. We innovated in GDI using a range of different tools, including World of Work, cafes, world cafes, and knowledge sharing activities and games. Those materials are available that help students from very complex and different contexts from the UK, for example, having a lot of local contextually rich knowledge to share, including a peer mentoring initiative, which our colleague Shirley Zhu is leading on for postgraduates. So I don't know whether you've considered that, knowledge sharing events, but they're very, very interesting and innovative and can be done online. So I'm just going to pause there. That's enough from me. That's really all I wanted to say. Those were our suggestions in a number of facets about how those suggestions might resonate with you. Is that what you've been working on? Have you been doing any of those things? Or maybe you've been doing something really different. So what I'd like to do to invite us is, if I stop sharing now, is ask you, how did those resonate with you in terms of the pivot to online? And so you can say, yes, you know, I've been doing that, or maybe there's something we haven't heard about yet that you are doing. So can I invite you to go back into those groups, into the breakout groups, and answer that question? So the question is, how do those resonate? Has that triggered a thought that, yes, I am doing that, or yes, I can do that, or there is something that we've missed that would really be helpful to share? So I'm going to invite you to go back, if that's okay, for another 5 minutes to your rooms. Everybody's back. Well, welcome. So what I'm looking forward to in 5 minutes' time, we're just going to have Sophie share the careers perspective on how they have moved online. They've had a very interesting period of time during the summer, moving online and having to do so much in a completely different way. So Sophie's I'm going to invite Sophie now to come and share with us. Let me share the screen so that I can share Sophie's slides. She's just going to speak for a few minutes on this topic of online of the online resources. So this is, how do we highlight the existing student support? Well, what we need to do is know about it. So Sophie, perhaps you just want to introduce yourself to those that don't yet know you, and then just perhaps run us through what you wanted to share.
Yeah, okay, so lovely to meet you, those of you that I've not come across personally yet. So I'm the new link for SEED from the Career Service. Now, this Career Service, you probably know, we always have a lot of events, a lot going on, and that hasn't changed this year. It's just that the offer has moved online. So we've already delivered hundreds of online events and webinars, mostly webinars and workshops over the summertime. And we've got a really comprehensive, really strong central offer for students to tap into as well. So as with before, we're still offering one-to-one appointments to students. Guidance appointments will be available to them from the 12th of October. So just to give you an idea, as consultants, we'll be spending half of our time giving just guidance appointments to try and meet with that demand. But we'll also, they can also access support with CVs and application forms up until the 12th of October. And we're in the process of taking on some students to train them up and help with applications advice, but there might be a little bit of a gap before they start, in which case we have lots and lots of information and resources and templates on the website as well. The main kind of event this semester to be aware of is Future Fortnight. So that's 2 weeks which is packed with online events. We've got our 3 major virtual careers fairs. So we've got Finance and Business on Monday the 19th. On Tuesday the 20th it's the STEM fair. and on Thursday the 22nd it's the law fair. But we've also got lots of employer events coming in, so question and answer sessions with employers. And then the second week is more concentrating on how to get those opportunities that the students have just found out about. So there'll be lots of sessions around interview technique, application forms, psychometric and assessment centres. So lots going on. We've tried our best to try and really think of everything that students might want support with and make sure that they can key into that still, just as they would have done previously. We've also got the Meet the Professionals as well, and I'll tell you in a minute how you can get access to all these events that are occurring, so you can signpost them to students.
Want me to move on to your next?
Yeah, that's fine. I've just on the previous page I did put a link through to Charlie Ball's Prospects Illuminate. I know you've referred to that earlier on in the session as well, Shirley. Absolutely. So I won't go through that in loads of detail because I know time is of the essence, but that's just a really good link to be aware of, or you can follow him on Twitter, Charlie Ball, or you can follow him on LinkedIn, and every week he gives a really succinct overview of what's happening in the labour market. So he talks about the sectors that have been adversely affected by COVID, but also those sectors that are doing okay still or are performing quite strongly, like IT or health and social care. And it just gives you a snapshot of the labour market at the moment. And one message that he has kept reiterating since June is that although it's a very worrying time for students, graduates are in a much stronger position in the labour market at the moment than non-graduates. So I think that's quite a good reassuring message to try and convey to students. Yes, Vidya, I think, Shirley, are you going to share the presentation after this? Vidya's just asking if I can share the presentation after the webinar.
Yes, of course, we can send it through.
Okay, wonderful. So these are just the resources, so I won't go through these in lots of detail, but you will be able to access these from the hyperlinks. So there's an FAQ document for academic advisors and professional staff, which I have sent around to a few of you, and which Shirley and I are in the process of getting added onto Blackboard, so you'll be able to access that. That gives 3 key questions that you can ask students in terms of their employability and things they can be doing to really propel themselves forward with employability, and some really useful web links and resources to tap into. The events webpage there is on our careers service website, and that's got everything laid out that we've got going on this semester. So it's a really quick, easy place to find everything. I've put together sort of revamped the Blackboard pages with an overarching Blackboard page of the careers service and how to contact us and what sort of support to access from us. We've got that in the International Management Blackboard site at the moment, I think, Shirley, and we're yes. in the process of getting it rolled out across Seed. And there's just some links there to some videos as well. So the first video is just a really nice, fun 3-minute video that you can show to students at any point, just gives them, in a nutshell, what we're here for and what kind of help they can get from us. There's a 30-minute video there for international students, which might be useful for some of the courses that have a high proportion of international students. And then a couple of videos for Seed undergraduates, one for postgraduates. Now, Selma did have some trouble accessing those, and I have asked a couple of other people to let me know if they can access them, but they've not got back to me yet. So all I'd say is, if you try to access those videos and you're struggling, can you let me know, and I'll try and resolve that. And then we've got the University of Manchester Careers YouTube channel. So if we deliver a webinar, for example, we'll always record it, and then it's available on demand through YouTube. So even if students can't make the live sessions, they can always catch them afterwards. Okay.
Sophie, thank you. So that's our 5 areas. I think we can stop sharing now. We're going to go to, I was going to hand over to David because he was going to lead us through a question, any questions or comments. And I think we've posed a couple of those. What are you doing? What can we learn from you? So David, I don't know how you'd like us to
Any way you wish. I mean, basically, it'd be good to get some feedback. Can I just say that, you know, I've just found this very useful, even though this is part of the seed area. And I think, Sophie, I'd like to extend an invite to you to come to our teaching and learning committee and perhaps share some of that information, because it really is good information to get out at some stage. But can we take some feedback from the breakout groups?
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what the keynote things were that you feel that you're challenged by or excited by. Something that somebody learnt.
All being incredibly shy at the moment.
Yeah,
okay. Oh, sorry, go on, Alex.
I was going to say, one thing that came to mind is in the ELE program, which is actually on its way out now anyway, we had embedded in the career management course unit run by Janet Willis. So they had a whole semester of a lot of relevant content. And I just think, I was mentioning to my colleagues in the breakout room, I think in many ways, I think this should start at the program level. Definitely, of course, refer students to career service, but that's one thing I've got, just to embed it more in the program, which is what you've been saying. It may be different from one program to the next, how that is interpreted, but whether it is a full-blown course unit or having guest lecturers, if that's possible, or asking students to, or having a career service half a day, not from career service, but a career day, if you like, within the program. So I think that's where I've come away with this, how to start from the ground up.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I mean, so just to contextualize that, yesterday was the first program approvals group. Shirley sits on that, as you do, and so on. And what we've got to get into the habit of is building these things in, not adding them at the end, but building in WP. And actually, the conversation about WP and employability is really, really important. Building employability from the start into the design of programs, because otherwise, if you add it onto the end, then you know it just becomes a distraction. It's not the inherently. Karis, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say, in our first discussion, something we were chatting about a bit was the whole notion of keeping students sort of optimistic but realistic about employment, and about, you know, I run second year placements, and that they, you know, it's going to be difficult, but they shouldn't give up on this, and this treading this fine line of keeping them going, but that they don't have unrealistic expectations. And we didn't really come up with any great suggestions as how we manage it, but we recognised that it might be something that's going to be tricky over the next, well, year or so.
Okay. Razia, did you want to say something?
Thanks for the nice presentation. I have 2 points. We discussed it in our group. The first one was about the situation with COVID-19, and everything is online, and some companies are working online. So I think students need to highlight their strength in working online, or what is required, or skills that they need to emphasize, and, you know, just to show their skills, how they can add to the company, or how they can do teamwork, because previously we encouraged them to include their skills in terms of group work and individual work. Both of them are required for working in the future, but now online skills are important. So as a lecturer, I can think about some points that are important, but I think maybe Career Service can have a discussion or a meeting just to identify all skills that are required for applying for job now, and just to bring or maybe highlight students' knowledge and skills in terms of working online. Maybe they have attended any webinars, maybe they have worked with the clients online, or these things. And also through other friends who are looking for a job, I realized that the interview system has been changed in some companies. There's no person, for example, in terms of interviewing people. There are machines, there are just like programs. So everything, some processes has been changed. So I wonder if Career Service has considered these issues, and if we are teaching our students how to deal with this new process of recruiting employees.
Okay, so in terms of the online skills that students are gaining, so I think it's important to remember that all those other skills, those general employability skills, are still really important. And what we would do during a one-to-one guidance interview is help students to understand what skills they've got, not just from the degree, but other activities that they've taken extracurricular as well. And we would at the moment try and bring out any digital skills that they've that they've honed through doing online learning and how these can be sold to an employer as well. We also do transitions to the workplace workshop, whereby we will look at, if they're starting work remotely, what that can mean for them sort of from a practical point of view, and things that they can do to help them with that transition if they are going to work remotely. And your second point was, sorry, processes have changed in terms of, could you just clarify that question for me?
Well, I heard through other people, other friends who are looking for a job now, that the process has been changed in some companies. Everything is online. There is no staff or employee to talk to the applicants. So,
you mean in terms of recruitment then?
Yes. So students should be familiar with the system, new system of the recruitment.
Yeah, so we've done a couple of workshops around assessment centres online and online interviews and video interviews. So we have tried to kind of go with that and make sure that students are up to date with the new recruitment processes and how some of the major employers have changed their recruitment processes and what to expect and how to deal with that.
Because I heard that, for example, there was one case that it was doing through just a computer, so the student had specific amount of time, like 2 minutes, to explain specific things, and there is nobody. You cannot see reactions. You don't know how to explain things. So I think students should learn how to do it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The Sonra interviews have been around for a while, and that does take a little bit of getting used to, and we do encourage students to practice that where they can. The best thing is if they go on the Career Service website and contact us, there's some web chat there, and if they get in touch with the information team and let them know if they've got a Sonra interview, because they normally get about 5 days to do it. So if when they get the first email, if they get in touch with us, and we'll see if anyone's available or if there's any kind of practice interviews that we can access for them.
And I think this is also about signposting, isn't it, Sophie? You've produced some guides which can, you know, Rosea's asking questions about what's changing in the recruitment, processes. We're not academics, and PS staff aren't meant to be the experts, but we can signpost them to all of the support materials that are available to you. And I think this complete transformation of recruitment to move it online is a really significant change. So we can support staff and students, can't we, to better understand what's happening.
Absolutely, and we've been rehashing the web pages over the summer as well, and we've redone all the branding. So there's been a lot of change, but the website's a good place to go to first of all. And then students can get in touch with us directly with more specific questions. But actually the YouTube channel that is on one of the slides, that's a really good place to look yourself, but also to direct students to, because any online sessions that we've offered that look at this online recruitment sort of strategies, they'll be available on the YouTube channel.
I'm aware it's 10 to 3, and there was one other thing that I wanted us to do maybe together as we go, is thinking about, apart from sharing insights, is I wonder what it is that you're taking away as we sort of close, is moving. One of the next stages was, having done an audit and thought about what we're doing, is prioritizing some sort of action, some sort of thing that I might do differently or try or focus on. So as a moment to reflect. And one of the things about webinars is it can all feel like it's coming at you. As you leave, as you ponder, maybe you don't know yet, but has something landed for you that you might want to look at again, afresh, differently? We hope so. So David, I'm going to hand over to you. That was my last question really, is okay. What's your takeaway? What's your takeaway and what's your action? What are you going to go and do as a result of being here for 50 minutes?
Okay, thanks Shirley, and thanks Sophie, and thanks Lorna for organising this. I think this is very useful. Shirley, obviously we have ongoing conversations about employability within SEED, and I think it's a strength, and I think it's something that we can continue to develop, both in terms of the social responsibility and also in terms of international students, because I think they're key areas, and also revisioning what employability means within a SEED context and a post-COVID context. because it's a challenging environment out there. So once again, thanks everyone for attending. And again, thanks to Shirley and Sophie for their presentations. And this will be recorded. Did you say, Shirley, that the presentations will be circulated, or will it be better just to put those on the COVID space that we've got?
Maybe would Lorna be able to put them, if I send them as a PDF, we can share them. That's perhaps the easiest way. Then we could send a link out.
Yeah, we can add them to the page. No problem.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you all.